Hailed a glorious streaming service, an essential must-have by The Hollywood Reporter, Acorn TV brings you top-rated mysteries and dramas from Britain and beyond. Acorn TV offers critically acclaimed gems, timeless classics, and exclusive Acorn TV originals, all commercial-free. Catch TV's biggest stars like Sandra Oh, David Tennant, Olivia Colman, Tandy Newton, Lucy Lawless, and Benedict Cumberbatch. Looking for an addictive period drama, thrilling whodunit, or heartfelt comedy? It's waiting for you on Acorn TV. Visit www.acorn.tv or download the Acorn TV app on your favorite device. Get an extended 30-day free trial with code TRUECRIME.
This episode contains graphic descriptions and audio that may be upsetting to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Infamy is an odd thing. A person can become infamous in an instant, or it can be something that is not easily obtained. I find that people tend to confuse the word infamy with fame quite often, but I'm here to tell you that they are two entirely different things. Infamy is when you are very well known for doing a bad deed, well, at least according to Webster's dictionary, while fame has a more positive connotation about the attention you're receiving. For instance, O.J. Simpson rose to fame because of his skills on the football field, while he is infamous for his suspected involvement in the murder of his ex-wife Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. That's probably not the greatest example to give, but it's the best I can come up with right at this particular moment. Becoming a
guy is just a killer, a mad killer, and you have no motive, so it makes it a little bit harder for us to track him down.
It's also fairly obvious that the man greatly enjoys the publicity that surrounds this thing. And there's a chance that man could be watching this interview.
That's true.
What would you have to say to this man?
About the only thing I could say to him I think he realizes he needs help. I'm sure he does. And I'm sure he realizes what he's doing, and this is, to me, it's a sex crime. He's doing this for gratification. And I feel that he should definitely seek aid at any agency that he wants to go to in law enforcement.
Friday, December 20th, 1968. The last day of school before Christmas break. David Faraday was a 17-year-old student at Vallejo High, and he was taking out his girl, Betty Lou Jensen, a 16-year-old junior at Hogan High. Some would claim that this was their first date, but rumor has it that they had been seeing each other off and on for a few months at this point. Betty Lou's parents were reluctant to let her date, but eventually they relented, so perhaps this was their first official date. The couple had intended on heading on over to Betty Lou's school for a Christmas concert, which was only about 3 blocks from her house, but instead they went out to dinner after visiting with a friend for a while. Once they were finished eating, they decided to head out to Lake Herman Road, a well-known lover's lane. It would appear that David and Betty Lou arrived at Lake Herman a little after 10 p.m. What transpired next can only be considered speculation. The next chain of events was only deduced after the analysis of forensic data. It is believed that while they were parked, another car had pulled up next to them at some time before 11 p.m. The driver of the other car exited his vehicle and walked towards the young couple. Whether he ordered them out of the car or shots were fired to lure them out is up for debate, but it appears that Betty Lou exited the car first, but David would only make it about halfway out of the car. The unknown man in the other car shot David in the head at close range by his left ear, killing him. Then, according to the police report, it looks as though Betty Lou tried to flee the scene, but she was gunned down approximately 10 feet behind the car. She was shot 5 times in the back. It is believed that after this double murder occurred, the killer got back into his car and drove away. A little after 11 p.m. that evening, a woman who lived nearby named Stella came upon the grisly scene. She noticed that it looked like a young man was falling out of the car, and then she noticed a girl laying face down on the ground close by. Realizing something horrible had happened, she got back into her car and sped towards the local town to report the crime. En route, she saw a police car and was able to flag them down. Police were stunned by this crime, and the brutal death of these 2 individuals rocked this California community. Unfortunately, authorities were never able to figure out who murdered these two kids, and at the time, they had no suspects. July 4th, 1969. In the late evening, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau drove and parked at Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, California. The two were friends and allegedly just there to have a conversation. Mike was a single 19-year-old man, where Darlene was a 22-year-old married woman. There were whispers that Darlene would step out on her marriage with other men from time to time, but this was all hearsay. According to Mike, while they were parked, a car would pull up next to them and almost immediately back out and leave. Approximately 10 minutes would go by, and this car would return, but this time it parked behind them. Believing that it was a police officer at first, Michael and Darlene pulled out their IDs in prep to show them to the officer. The unknown man would come up along the passenger side of the vehicle and would shine a flashlight in their eyes, obscuring their view. Without saying a word and before they could even process what was going on, 5 shots were being fired into the vehicle from a 9mm Luger. Darlene and Mike were both hit when this unknown man shot into the car. A few of the bullets actually went through Michael and hit Darlene as well. After the initial 5 shots, the attacker walked back towards his vehicle, but he turned back around when he heard Michael moaning in pain. He returned to Darlene's car to fire 2 more shots into each of them. After this, it seemed as though the attacker got back into his car and left the scene. About 45 minutes later, the Vallejo Police Department received a call from a man saying that he was the one who had committed the attack. He would state that he used a 9mm Luger, and he would also claim responsibility for the murder of David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, almost 7 months earlier. Police were able to trace the call made by the killer to a phone booth at a gas station that was only a few blocks away from the police station. Upon their discovery, Darlene and Michael were rushed to the hospital. Michael suffered from a gunshot wound to his neck, face, and chest, but Darlene was pronounced dead at the hospital. The police wasted no time trying to get information out of Michael as to who would want to hurt him and Darlene. And despite the fact that he had just been shot multiple times, Michael was able to get a glimpse of his attacker when he returned to the car to shoot them again. He would state to authorities that this attacker was a Caucasian man with brown hair, between 20 to 30 years old, with a stocky build and a round face. The police had a face, but that's all they would get. That is until July 31st, 1969, when letters were sent to the Vallejo Times-Herald, San Francisco Examiner, and the San Francisco Chronicle from the attacker. In these letters, the attacker would give details only the murder of Faraday, Jensen, and Ferrin would know, confirming that this guy was the real perpetrator.
Dear Editor, I am the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman and the girl last 4th of July. To prove this, I shall state some facts which only I and the police know. Christmas. Number 1, brand name of ammo, Super X. Number 2, 10 shots fired. Number 3, boy was on his back with feet to car. Number 4, girl was lying on right side, feet to west. 4th of July. Number 1, girl was wearing patterned pants. Number 2, boy was also shot in knee. Number 3, ammo was made by Western. Here is a cipher, or part of one. The other 2 parts are being mailed to the Vallejo Times and San Francisco Chronicle. I want you to print the cipher on the front page by Friday afternoon, August 1st, 1969. If you do not print the cipher, I will go on a kill rampage Friday night. This will last the whole weekend. I will cruise around killing people who are alone at night until Sunday night, or until I kill a dozen people.
The letters would be received on August 1st of 1969. Within each letter was one part of a 408-symbol cryptogram. In the cipher, the killer stated that he revealed his identity. Like his letter stated, the killer demanded that they print the cryptogram on the front page of their papers. The San Francisco Chronicle published it on page 4. They did it because Chief Jack Stiltz stated, "We're not satisfied that the letter was written by the murderer," and requested that the writer send a second letter with more facts to prove his identity. On August 4th, 1969, another letter was written. Within this letter, the killer finally gave himself a name.
Dear Editor, this is the Zodiac speaking. In answer to your asking for more details about the good times I have had in Vallejo, I shall be very happy to supply even more material. By the way, are the police having a good time with the code? If not, tell them to cheer up. When they do crack it, they will have me. on the 4th of July. I did not open the car door. The window was rolled down already. The boy was originally sitting in the front seat when I began firing. When I fired the first shot at his head, he leaped backwards at the same time, thus spoiling my aim. He ended up on the back seat, then the floor and back, thrashing out very violently with his legs. That's how I shot him in the knee. I did not leave the scene of the killing with squealing tires and racing engine, as described in the Vallejo paper. I drove away quite slowly, so as not to draw attention to my car. The man who told the police that my car was brown was a Negro, about 40 to 45, rather shabbily dressed. I was at this phone booth having some fun with the Vallejo cops when he was walking by. When I hung the phone up, the damn thing began to ring, and that drew his attention to me and my car. Last Christmas, in that episode, the police were wondering as to how I could shoot and hit my victims in the dark. They did not openly state this, but implied this by saying it was a well-lit night and I could see the silhouettes on the horizon. Bullshit. That area is surrounded by high hills and trees. What I did was tape a small pencil flashlight to the barrel of my gun. If you notice, in the center of the beam of light, if you aim it at a wall or ceiling, you will see a black or dark spot in the center of the circle of light about 3 to 6 inches across. When taped to a gun barrel, the bullet will strike exactly in the center of the black dot in the light. All I had to do was spray them, as if it was a water hose. There was no need to use the gun sights. I was not happy to see that I did not get front-page coverage.
Eventually, all 3 cryptograms were made public. The day after the killer's second letter was received, August 8, 1969, a California couple, Donald and Betty Hardin, figured out the cipher that the Zodiac sent to the San Francisco Chronicle. It read,
I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all to kill. Something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it's that when I die I will be reborn in paradise, and all that I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife.
At the end of the cipher there was 18 unused letters. E, B, E, O, R, I, E, T, E, M, E, T, H, H, P, I, T, I. To date, no one has ever been able to figure out what these letters mean or represent. There are quite a few theories out there as to what it could mean, but officially, it has not been solved. The Zodiac wouldn't strike again until September 27, 1969. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard decided to go out to Lake Berryessa for a picnic. They had been relaxing when Cecilia noticed something in the distance. There was a man approaching them, which wouldn't seem odd except for the fact that this man in particular was wearing a black executioner's hood with glasses over the eye holes. He was also wearing some sort of vest with a symbol on it, the same symbol that had been seen on the many Zodiac Killer letters, a circle with a cross over it, similar to what a gun sight looks like. The man appeared to be about 6 feet tall and had a stocky build. He claimed that he was a prison escapee and that he had killed a prison guard. He said that he needed money and a car so that he would be able to flee to Mexico. Brian offered the would-be robber his wallet and car keys, but the man never took them. The man had brought with him pre-cut clothesline to the scene and handed them over to Cecilia. He instructed her to tie up Brian first and then he would tie her up. On his way over to tie up Cecilia, the hooded man checked Brian's bindings and noticed that Cecilia had made them loose, possibly so Brian could easily break free and take down this assailant. But this man, the man who is believed to be the Zodiac, tightened them and then proceeded to bind Cecilia's hands behind her back, just like Brian's. After the couple was securely tied up and laying on their stomachs, the Zodiac began stabbing Cecilia, 5 times in her back and 5 times in her front. Brian was next, and he was stabbed 6 times in his back. After the attack, the Zodiac calmly walked away from the couple. He made his way to their parked vehicle and scribbled the following.
Vallejo, 12/20/68, 7/4/69, September 27, 69, 6:30, by knife.
A fisherman who happened to be nearby had heard the couple screaming and told a park ranger. When the couple was first found, Brian and Cecilia had both gotten out of their restraints. About an hour later, an ambulance arrived on the scene and took the couple to Queen of the Valley Hospital. During this time, the Napa Police Department had received a call from a man stating that he was responsible for the stabbing that had just occurred. The police were able to trace the call to a phone booth in downtown Napa, and they were able to recover fingerprints from the scene. The police scoured Lake Berryessa for more evidence. They noticed the scribbled message on the car door that had the dates of the two other crimes along with his crosshair symbol, tire tracks from the Zodiac's car, and his footprints. His shoe size was a 10.5, and the impression indicated he weighed more than 210 pounds. This would go along the lines of witnesses in the area who stated that they saw a strange man with a stocky stature in the vicinity a few hours before the attacks. Cecilia Shepard would succumb to her injuries within 2 days of the incident. Brian survived the attack and would give a handful of interviews to the media after the attack, even one while he was recovering in the hospital.
If I remember right, in speaking with one of the deputies who was investigating this thing, he said that the first thing you told a deputy out there was to give some idea of a description of the man. Do you understand now how your mind was able to work that well under those conditions? You really did an exceptional job in that.
Well, through the whole thing, like I mentioned before, at the beginning, I did think I was going to die. And so from that moment on, one has to have certain goals that you have to set. The first goal, of course, was to live. I suppose the second goal was to get untied. The next one was to get help. From getting help, getting to the hospital. You know, you have to have a successive set of goals. And if you can keep this going and you can keep your mind active, whether you die or not, you're at least psychologically attuned, whether you're in shock or not. If you can keep arguing with yourself, praying, doing anything to keep your mind off of yourself, or at least just not lapsing back.
The Zodiac would strike again 2 weeks later. On October 11, 1969, Paul Stine's cab was hailed by a Caucasian man somewhere between the ages of 25 to 30 years old. He was believed to be around 5 feet 9 inches tall, brown hair styled into a crew cut, he had a stocky build, and he wore thick horn-rimmed glasses. When the man entered the vehicle, he asked to be taken to Washington and Maple Street. For reasons unknown to all, Paul Stine drove past Maple by 1 block, to Cherry Street. The passenger then shot Paul in the head with a 9mm. This was around 9:55 p.m. at night, and in plain sight, so anyone could see this crime occurring, and 3 teenagers did. They were in the upstairs bedroom of their home when they heard the shot and looked out the window. They saw a man wiping down the vehicle before he casually walked down the street away from the crime. What happened next might be the biggest mistake in the Zodiac case. When the teenagers called the police, they described the man exactly as they saw him. As stated earlier, it was a white male that shot Paul Stine, but police dispatchers sent out a description of the attacker as a black male at first. It was quickly corrected, but because of this, when 2 patrol officers saw a white male walking nearby, they didn't think to question him. Or so they say, but they did get a good look at him. Once the officers realized that they had made a mistake, and they went to look for this man, he was nowhere to be found. At first, officers weren't sure that this crime was the Zodiac. Since Paul's wallet and keys were taken, perhaps it was a robbery gone wrong. But on October 13, 1969, authorities would find out very quickly that this man was murdered at the hands of the Zodiac. The San Francisco Chronicle would receive yet another letter from the killer.
This is the Zodiac speaking. I am the murderer of the taxi driver over by Washington Street plus Maple Street last night. To prove this, here is a blood-stained piece of his shirt. I am the same man who did in the people in the North Bay area. The San Francisco police could have caught me last night if they had searched the park properly, instead of holding road races with their motorcycles, seeing who could make the most noise. The car drivers should have just parked their cars and sat there quietly, waiting for me to come out of cover. School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning, just shoot out the front tires, then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out.
The piece of shirt that the Zodiac had put in the letter was in fact Paul Stine's shirt. Dave Toschi and Bill Armstrong, two investigators assigned to the case, were floored that this was actually Paul Stine's shirt and not just the Zodiac claiming a murder he didn't commit. Either way, because of the three teenagers who saw the Zodiac, police were able to get a sketch of the elusive killer and released it to the public. But still, they had no definitive leads pointing them to a specific person. On October 20th, 1969, a man called the Oakland PD saying that he was the Zodiac, and that he demanded that two popular lawyers named F. Lee Bailey or Melvin Belli go on the TV show AM San Francisco. Bailey was not available to appear, but Melvin was.
What can I say?
Well, why don't we just ask Sam to tell us a little bit more about what he's feeling right now? Tell us about your feelings, Sam. Just tell us anything you want to.
And then we'll come back and I'll give you a specific answer to this question, are you going to the gas chamber? Stay with us so I can answer that for you. But will you attend on Jim just a minute and tell him what you're feeling or talk to us?
Just tell us what's going on inside you right now, Sam, please.
I have headache.
All right.
How long have you had those headaches, Sam? In a long time?
Since I killed a kid.
This Sam person never showed up to the meeting place that they had agreed upon, and it would later be determined that this person was not the real Zodiac, but a mental hospital patient named Eric Wheel. Then, on November 8th, 1969, the Zodiac mailed out yet another letter and cryptogram.
This is the Zodiac speaking. I thought you would need a good laugh before you hear the bad news. You won't get the news for a while yet. P.S. Could you print this new cipher on the front page? I get awfully lonely when I'm ignored. So lonely, I could do my thing.
This cipher remains unsolved until this day. The following day, on November 9th, 1969, another letter was sent to the Chronicle. This letter would state that the police would never catch the Zodiac, for he, the Zodiac, was too clever for them. He would also say that the two patrol officers who saw him walking a few minutes after he killed Paul Stine actually stopped and spoke to him, asking him if he saw anything suspicious in the area. He claimed that he told them that he saw a man running and waving a gun, to which, he says, the cops went looking for this alleged man. Then there was silence for about a month. Until December 20th, 1969, the Zodiac, perhaps playing yet another game with the public, sent a letter to Melvin Belli, the lawyer who appeared on TV and spoke to a man claiming to be the Zodiac. Unlike that interaction, which was proven to be a hoax, this letter was not, for it contained yet another piece of Paul Stine's bloody shirt.
Dear Melvin, this is the Zodiac speaking. I wish you a happy Christmas. The one thing I ask of you is this. Please help me. I cannot reach out for help because of this thing in me won't let me. I am finding it extremely difficult to hold it in check, and I'm afraid I will lose control again and take my 9th, and possibly 10th, victim. Please help me, I am drowning. At the moment, the children are safe from the bomb because it is so massive to dig in, and the trigger mech requires much work to get it adjusted just right. But if I hold back too long from No 9, I will lose all control of myself and set the bomb up. Please help me. I cannot remain in control for much longer.
After this letter was sent, the Zodiac went quiet yet again. While it's possible that he was responsible for more crimes, there is no definitive proof to say either which way. David Faraday, Betty Lou Jensen, Darlene Ferrin, Mike Mageau, Cecilia Shepard, Brian Hartnell, and Paul Stine are the only confirmed murders and attacks by the Zodiac to date. But there are a handful of cases that could potentially be him. For instance, on March 22, 1970, Kathleen Johns was driving back to Petaluma from San Bernardino after she had just visited with her mother. At the time, she was 7 months pregnant, and she also had her 10-month-old daughter beside her in the front seat. Around the Modesto area, a car behind her began honking and flashing its lights at her. Kathleen pulled her car over to the side of the road, and the person who had been honking pulled in behind her. A man stepped out of the car and told her that her back right wheel was wobbling, and he offered to tighten the lug nuts for her, and she gratefully accepted his help. Once he was done messing around with her tire, she got back into her car and began to drive away, when her back tire almost completely fell off. The man who she believed had tried to help her returned and offered to take her to a nearby gas station for assistance. Kathleen and her baby got into the man's vehicle, and they went on their way. But something was off. First, they passed by many service stations, and he wouldn't stop. They were in the car for well over an hour, and Kathleen had asked the driver a few times why he wasn't stopping, but he ignored all of her questions. Sensing the danger and seeing an opportunity, once the driver stopped at an intersection, Kathleen jumped out of the car while holding her daughter. The driver of the car stopped immediately and attempted to find where Kathleen had run off to, but he was unsuccessful. Kathleen would eventually get a ride from another passerby, and she went straight to the police station. While giving her account of what happened, Kathleen noticed the composite sketch of the Zodiac, and when she did, she claimed that this was the man who had abducted her that night. Later, when police found Kathleen's car, it had been horribly damaged by fire and seemingly gutted. Whether or not this is an actual crime of the Zodiac is difficult to say. Down the line, there would be discrepancies in the story that was documented and what Kathleen initially said had occurred. So this particular event is only labeled as a possible encounter. And the Zodiac wouldn't outwardly claim responsibility for the incident either. He makes mention of burning a car in a letter he sent to the San Francisco Chronicle on July 24, 1970, stating that he gave a woman and her baby a ride for a few hours, and then he burned her car. On April 28, 1970, the Zodiac sent out a greeting card to the Chronicle.
I hope you enjoy yourselves when I have my blast. P.S. If you don't want me to have this blast, you must do 2 things. 1. Tell everyone about the bus bomb with all the details. 2. I would like to see some nice Zodiac buttons wandering about town. Everyone else has these buttons like peace, black power, Melvin eats blubber, etc., etc. Well, it would cheer me up considerably if I saw a lot of people wearing my button. Please, no nasty ones, like Melvin's. Thank you.
On June 26, 1970, the Zodiac sent out another letter and a small cipher to the Chronicle.
This is the Zodiac speaking. I've become very upset with the people of the San Fran Bay area. They have not complied with my wishes for them to wear some nice Zodiac buttons. I promised to punish them if they did not comply by annihilating a full school bus. But now school is out for the summer, so I punished them in another way. I shot a man sitting in a parked car with a .38, Zodiac 12 SFPD 0. The map coupled with this code will tell you where the bomb is set. You have until next fall to dig it up.
As stated in the letter, he claimed that he shot a man who was sitting in a parked car. The San Francisco PD never solved this crime, but they do not believe that the Zodiac was involved. It is believed that the Zodiac would read the paper and claim that he committed certain crimes to keep his name in the public's eye. But this is all just speculation. In October of 1970, a reporter who had been covering the Zodiac case at the San Francisco Chronicle named Paul Avery received a direct letter from the Zodiac. It was actually a Halloween card that featured Zodiac's infamous logo, and he signed it Z. In the card, he wrote, "Peekaboo, you're doomed." This seemed like a threat directed towards Paul, and it wasn't taken lightly. Avery would begin carrying a gun, and along with other people who worked at the newspaper, began wearing a pin that said, "I am not Paul Avery." Paul would eventually receive an anonymous letter that told him to look into a murder case of a woman named Sherry Jo Bates in Riverside, California back in 1966. This letter indicated that there was a link between her death and the Zodiac. Sherry Jo Bates was an 18-year-old college student at the time of her death on October 30th, 1966. She was spending her evening at Riverside Community College's library, and she was there till about 9 p.m. that evening. Reports say that the neighbors heard screaming around 10:30 p.m. that night, but Bates's body would not be found until the next morning. She was found between two abandoned houses not far from the library. She had been beaten and stabbed to death. At the scene of the crime, a Timex watch was found, and it had stopped at 12:24. Similar to the Zodiac letter sent out in July of 1969, a typewritten confession letter was sent out to the Riverside Police and the Riverside Press Enterprise.
She was young and beautiful, but now she is battered and dead. She is not the first, and she will not be the last. I lay awake nights thinking about my next victim. Maybe she will be the beautiful blonde that babysits near the little store and walks down the dark alley each evening about 7. Or maybe she will be the shapely blue-eyed brunette that said no when I asked her for a date in high school. But maybe it will not be either. But I shall cut off her female parts and deposit them for the whole city to see, so don't make it too easy for me. Keep your sisters, daughters, and wives off the streets and alleys. Miss Bates was stupid. She went to the slaughter like a lamb. She did not put up a struggle, but I did. It was a ball. I first pulled the middle wire from the distributor, then I waited for her in the library, and followed her out after about 2 minutes. The battery must have been dead by then. I then offered to help. She was then very willing to talk to me. I told her that my car was down the street and that I would give her a lift home. When we were away from the library walking, I said it was about time. She asked about time for what? I said it was about time for her to die. I grabbed her around the neck with my hand over her mouth and my other hand with a small knife at her throat. She went very willingly. Her breast felt very warm and firm under my hands, but only one thing was on my mind, making her pay for the brush-offs that she had given me during the years prior. She died hard. She squirmed and shook as I choked her. Her lips twitched. She let out a scream once. I kicked her head to shut her up. I plunged the knife into her, and it broke. I then finished the job by cutting her throat. I am not sick. I am insane, but that will not stop the game. This letter should be published for all to read it. It just might save that girl in the alley, but that's up to you. It will be on your conscience, not mine. Yes, I did make that call to you also. It was just a warning. Beware. I am stalking your girls now.
The police weren't sure if this was a letter from the actual killer. While the letter did contain details not widely known to the public, they couldn't definitely prove that this was an actual communication with the assailant. They thought it could have been a hoax. In December of 1966, a poem was found carved into the bottom side of the desktop in the library that Sherry had been in the night of her murder.
Cut, clean, if red, clean, blood splurting, dripping, spilling, all over her new dress. Oh well, it was red anyways. Life draining into an uncertain death. She won't die. This time, someone will find her. Just wait till next time.
In April of 1967, Sherry's father, the Press Enterprise, and the Riverside Police all received handwritten letters that stated, "Bates had to die. There will be more." In 2 of the letters, there was a scribble at the bottom. It kind of resembles the letter Z, or it could just be a random pen mark. Paul Avery, after finding out all this information about Sherry and her possible link to the Zodiac, wrote an article publishing this information to the public. In March of 1971, the Zodiac would respond to this by mailing a letter to the Los Angeles Times and acknowledging murders in Riverside. But he gave the credit to the police for making the connections and not to Paul Avery. Riverside police do not believe that Sherry's murder had anything to do with the Zodiac. In fact, they are fairly certain that they know who committed the crime. However, due to the handwriting analysis, some people believe that the man behind the name Zodiac is responsible for the letters and the hand-carved poem on the desk. But this wouldn't be the first time that the Zodiac claimed murders that he didn't commit. In March of 1971, the Zodiac would send another card to Paul Avery, stating that he was responsible for a disappearance of a woman named Donna Lass in September of 1970. Most of the details surrounding this case seem very uncharacteristic of the Zodiac Killer. Lass was a nurse who went missing after working her late shift at the hospital. Lass's employers and landlord would receive phone calls from an unknown male stating that she had to leave town because of a family emergency, and then she was never seen again. The Zodiac's claim to this disappearance seems to be the only link between the two. It is very possible that he could have been behind the act, but it also could be him just trying to snowball his infamy. In November of 1972, there was a story in the Vallejo Times-Herald that linked the Zodiac to the murder of a young couple in Santa Barbara County. It was back in June of 1963. Robert Domingos and Linda Edwards were partaking in their school's senior ditch day. Most schools have this day in which the seniors, right before graduation, skip school and enjoy the day while the underclassmen are stuck in class. The couple had decided to go to a remote beach that day. It appears as though that whoever killed the couple attempted to bind them, in a similar fashion to Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, but it seemed to not go as planned. It has been deduced that the couple somehow freed themselves and attempted to run, but they were shot down by the attacker. Then the killer dragged the bodies to a nearby shack and the bodies were placed on top of one another facing upward. Linda's bathing suit had been cut open, possibly with a knife the killer may have had with him, and her breasts were exposed. It then seems like the killer attempted to burn the shack down, but it didn't work. The parallels between this case and the Hartnell-Shepard attack are blatantly obvious. A couple on a secluded beach, binding to keep them restrained, the gun, the possible knife. It's all very similar. Many Zodiac experts believe that no other individual could have been behind this attack except the Zodiac. But the matter of the fact is, we just don't know for certain. 3 years would go by and nothing came from the Zodiac. Then in January of 1974, he would send another letter to the Chronicle. It was a short letter where he would refer to the movie The Exorcist as a satirical comedy and that, by his tally, he had killed 37 people so far. This is widely referred to as the last confirmed letter from the Zodiac. While others would be received, certain things would indicate that they were hoax letters. For instance, the letter received on Valentine's Day of 1974.
Dear Mr. Editor, did you know that the initials SLAY, Symbionese Liberation Army, spell Sla, an Old Norse word meaning kill? A friend.
The handwriting, while very similar, did not fully match the Zodiac's previous letters. There would be 2 more letters in 1974 that would fall under the same blanket of suspicion. They were more so Zodiac-like, but nothing definitively proving that it was actually him. But then again, we can't be certain either which way. Then in April of 1978, the last of the well-known letters was sent to the San Francisco Chronicle.
Dear Editor, this is the Zodiac speaking. I am back with you. Tell Herb Cain I am here. I have always been here. That city pig Tashi is good, but I'm smarter and better. He will get tired, then leave me alone. I am waiting for a good movie about me. Who will play me? I am in control of all things.
This letter was, at first, thought to be the real deal. But after further examination, experts determined that this was a well-done forgery. I know what you're probably thinking. This story can't be over. And it isn't. What we're about to dive into next is the suspects. While all those letters were being sent and those attacks were occurring, the police were working on catching this man. Many suspects would come and go. Ted Kaczynski, the infamous Unabomber, was even considered for a time. But no man has been more popular than Arthur Lee Allen. But I'm here to tell you that all the evidence that would point to Allen being the Zodiac is purely circumstantial. Many people truly believe that it was him. But that flame seemed to be fueled mainly by a man named Robert Graysmith. Graysmith, just to touch on him briefly, was a political cartoonist at the San Francisco Chronicle. He was there when the Zodiac first started his serial killing, and he grew obsessed with the case. Over the course of many years, Graysmith would compile enough information to write a book about the killer, which he entitled Zodiac. Graysmith deduced that Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac for a slew of reasons, and it all started when David Toschi told Graysmith that the Zodiac would be someone who would try to insinuate himself into the police investigation, and that the only person he questioned in the whole Zodiac case that ever corresponded with him after the fact was Arthur Lee Allen, a man who wrote David from prison saying, "I'm sorry I wasn't your man. I just want to help." With that bit of information, Graysmith sleuthed around for more. Arthur Lee Allen was a teacher at Valley Spring Elementary School in 1968 when he was fired for alleged child molestation. Allen was put on the police's radar from a former friend of him by the name of Don. He tipped them off. He said that Allen had said something about wanting to kill couples at random, and possibly even referred to himself as the Zodiac. Police would question and interview Allen a few times, and he even provided writing samples for them, all of which came back showing his handwriting as to not match the Zodiac Killer. What kept police and people like Graysmith so captivated by Allen were these few coincidences. Allen owned a Zodiac watch that donned the infamous Zodiac crosshair symbol. He was in possession of knives that were covered in blood on the day that Cecilia and Brian were attacked at the lake. His whereabouts were in close proximity to certain attacks, and he couldn't provide a solid alibi or any witnesses to confirm that he was at these specific locations and not attacking people. He also was in the area at the time that Sherry Jo Bates was murdered. But again, all of that information is circumstantial and not proof that he is in fact the Zodiac. Allen's family didn't help his cause much either. The Zodiac was known for misspelling words constantly in his letters. In his December 20th letter, he misspelled Christmas by adding an extra S at the end, something that Allen's sister would claim that he had done in cards he had given her. She also pointed out that Arthur was ambidextrous, meaning he could write with both hands. So the theory that would spiral out of that was that Allen would use his dominant hand to write in his day-to-day, and his other hand he would use to pen the Zodiac letters. Honestly, the list goes on and on when it comes to the oddities and weird coincidences that may or may not indicate that Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac. Despite all of that, no DNA ever linked him to the case. No fingerprint match, no palm print matches, nothing. The police had several, and nothing matched Allen. And he looked the complete polar opposite of what the composite sketch of the actual Zodiac looked like. Allen was really round-faced, bald, and he didn't wear glasses, where we have a picture of a man with a face on the thinner side, brown hair, and horn-rimmed glasses. The final nail in the coffin for Arthur Lee Allen that has people absolutely convinced of his guilt, still to this day that he was the Zodiac, is the fact that in 1991, Mike Mageau ID'd Allen as the man who shot him. Mageau was shown a police lineup of photos, and he picked Allen's out of all of them. When he asked why he never ID'd him before, he would state that he was only given names and never shown pictures of suspects. Arthur Lee Allen died on August 22, 1992. Whether or not he was in fact the Zodiac is up for each individual to decide. Over the course of nearly half a century, people have come forward saying they know who the Zodiac is. That the Zodiac was more than one person. The Zodiac was their father. And even that the Zodiac wasn't real. But we don't know for sure, and we may never know the answer to the pressing question. Who was the Zodiac?